one of you in here. So, did the meet and greet this morning. That went really well. Um, was there at the 14th Street Cafe here in Astoria. A gentleman, Paul, was there when I showed up, and then a couple of other guys showed up as we were sitting there talking. So, it was a great little conversation. Talked about stock and crypto investing, and then talked about some of our hobbies and professions, and just kind of sat around as talk like normal people. All right, a lot of fun. Hey, what's happening? Who we got in here already? Dorn in the. What does that say? I can hardly read this. Dom in the ocean. Thank you very much for coming in and saying hello. And thank you guys for joining in on the conversation. Be sure and hit the like button. That will get more people joining in on the comments, because that's always a lot of fun to read the comments as we're doing this. So please definitely hit the like button on there. Wanted to talk a little bit about these Russian bonds. Now, this is something that we have been talking about quite a bit lately, and Russia has these dollar bonds. This is something that a lot of people don't really think about much, is that foreign nations are selling bonds due in US dollars, right? So they sell them in US dollars, and they're due back in US dollars. And Russia had a bunch of these bonds that were due on Monday. And they went ahead and told the Treasury, it was like, yeah, go ahead and pay the bonds. But the Treasury and the sanctions from the United States and JP Morgan, who was the one who was supposed to be processing these bond payments, pretty much are frozen, saying, nope, the sanctions are not allowing us to process these bond payments for these Russian bond payments. Thank you very much for the super chat. I'll come back to that in just a second. And so they told him, it was just like, hey, you're sanctioned, so you're going to have to use the dollars that you hold within your own nation. And Russia's like, nah, I don't think so. We're going to pay these things in rubles, which they didn't have a provision to be paid in rubles. So that's technically a default. And so Russia has 30 days, ultimately. Oh, I'm going to try and stop saying ultimately. Russia has 30 days to pay these bonds, or else it goes into default. And Russia's saying, no, we're paying them in rubles. So it's very interesting to see what comes from this, because what I want to see, I almost said it one more time. What I want to see is what's going to happen with the credit defaults, swaps, those insurance policies that have been written to cover those bonds if they were to go into default. And even though Russia has paid them in rubles, that really is a question on whether or not these credit default swaps are going to be paid. I don't think they will. I think they're probably still going to be out of their scope of, what do they call it? Out of their scope of obligation. And so I feel a lot of these people who are holding these Russian bonds are going to get paid in rubles, which probably aren't going to do them a whole lot of good, especially on the world market. You would only really be able to spend those rubles in Russia with Russia. So I would imagine that anybody who holds these bonds and gets paid in rubles is probably going to be feeling like they were cheated out, or had been defaulted on. Anyway, pretty interesting. You'll find links down in the description for that. And then also, one of the things I think we should talk about here is the incredible amount of credible threats coming from the Federal Reserve. And a lot of people still just seem to think that the Federal Reserve is not pursuing a strategy that they had set into motion a long time ago. A lot of people feel that the Federal Reserve has lost control. They're behind on the curve, or whatever it is. I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way simply because of the speech that John Williams had given back in 2018, talking about this exact scenario taking place. He talked about there needing to be inflation running extra hot for an extended period of time, and that they were going to do this, and that inflation was going to run hot, and they were going to raise interest rates running into inflation, and that those rising of interest rates were going to seem like they were happening at the incredibly wrong time, considering what was going on in the markets. All this stuff is playing out. I mean, it's not like the Federal Reserve doesn't understand what's happening. I mean, at least in my opinion, only because of the stuff that they had said prior to all this stuff going down. So anyway, let's find that super chat. Let's see what was in that real quick. Thank you very much, Big D Ag. You are the man. Thank you. Thank you very much for the $10 super chat. I did an in-depth video on Russia-Ukraine bonds. Okay, who is this? Sophisticated Investing with Joseph. Go check out Sophisticated Investing with Joseph. Go see what he has to say about this. Surprising, but the bond markets and CDS markets are actually pricing Russian bonds way more favorably than Ukrainian bonds. Love your content. Well, that's very interesting. We should go and check out that video that you did. I would be very interested to hear what you have to say on that. Unless rubles are able to be exchanged in gold, then bonds are convertible in gold. Yeah, I don't know about that. I know like Russia's trying to sell a lot of their gold, or at least exchanging, like their banks are exchanging rubles for gold, but I don't know to what extent that is and to how much effect that's really going to have on the markets. Thanks for your thoughts, bro. You're welcome, Frank. Not a problem. Why is my... Oh, there it is. I was going to say it was kind of stuck there. Is it really default by Russians if the money they had was stolen? It's more like a default by the United States, by the USD. Yeah, that sort of seems like it to me too. I mean, it was just like, if the money is there to be paid and they choose not to do it, that's a default. And now I understand that they have these sanctions and everything, and Russia is just like, saying, hey, we have the money. You got it right there in that account. Just go ahead and make the payments. You don't need me to say yay or nay. We're telling you, go ahead and use that money to pay the bonds. But the United States is saying, no, we're not going to let that happen. We're going to go ahead and just put this economic pain on you. You have dollars. You use your dollars to pay those bonds. So really, it's kind of like, to me, it's almost like a game of chicken, because if bond defaults really start kicking in, if sovereign bond defaults start a contagion effect, and we've talked about this in the past where, like, especially with Evergrande, like, we're not talking a whole lot about Evergrande. They haven't been in the news as much lately. But Evergrande there was a situation there where they could very well have kicked off like a corporate bond default crisis, like where it started leading into other contagion effects from other corporations who hold the debt of corporations who are defaulting. Does that kind of make sense? So like if you were, I mean, I've said it, I've described this a few times in the past, but if you were working for Evergrande, like you were a contractor who was hired by Evergrande to do like, to build a high rise or something like that. And when Evergrande went to pay you, a lot of times they would pay you in what's called commercial paper. And that commercial paper is like a very short-term bond, sort of. What it is like, it's as if you got a contract that is going to pay, say, $100, but you got it at $97. So that's a pretty good deal. If you hold on to it for a year, you can get paid $100. You can gain a little bit of interest off of that. Or you can just sell it at any time you want. So when Evergrande paid their contractors, they would pay them in like this commercial paper. Now, those contractors thought this was a pretty good deal because they could make a little bit of money by holding on to this commercial paper for a short amount of time and gain a little bit of interest off of that. The problem is that when Evergrande started to default, that commercial paper started going from 97 cents or 100 cents on the dollar down to 50 cents or 30 cents or 20 cents on the dollar. And now those commercial papers, it sits on the balance sheets of these contractors. So they have assets and liabilities, this commercial paper being one of their assets. If the commercial paper begins to lose value, then their assets fall and their liabilities are now higher than their assets. Their credit rating begins to fall. Now all of a sudden, they're starting to go into default, or they have trouble taking out more loans. And the people who own their commercial paper or their bonds have the same effect. So this thing starts, did I say that all right? So it starts bleeding into other ones. It has this domino effect. Anybody who's holding Russian debt, that same thing can happen. If you hold a lot of this Russian debt, then you could end up sitting in a position in which that your liabilities outweigh your assets, and you start going into default, and then everybody who holds your debt has the same issues going on. Did I explain all that right? Anyway. Thank you very much for the super chat. Where is that? There we go. Jaws, you're the best. $4.99. What's your favorite egg-laying chicken? Are you still pursuing quails? Also, what book were you going to read if no one showed up today? Okay, let's start with the first one. My favorite egg-laying chickens. I have three. I like the Rhode Island Reds, I like the Barred Rocks, and I like Australorps. Those are my three favorite egg-laying birds. And I really like the Australorps. They're a very mild bird, and they're very cool. Like as far as like just having around as in the yard, like they're just a very pleasant bird. Rhode Island Reds can be very aggressive. Like if you have a flock of birds and you have the Rhode Island Reds in there, they're usually the dominant ones. And then Barred Rocks are awesome. Very traditional, like speckly birds that you see out there on most farms. So I like having the Barred Rocks just because of that traditional look. Australorps being my favorite egg-laying producers. And then the Rhode Island Reds are a lot of fun too, just because of that aggressive nature of them. They're a lot of fun to watch. So anyway, those are my favorite egg-laying birds. What was the other question? Are you still pursuing quail? Yes, we are talking about quail and raising quail. Haven't done it yet, but we're gonna do that. We're gonna start raising quail. I'm thinking about doing them after I get the chickens established. So the quail are probably going to end up being sometime during the summer that I get started into those. But yeah, and then what book? One Rental at a Time, the one that Matt sent me a couple weeks ago. I was gonna read One Rental at a Time, but there was people there, so I didn't read any of that. Okay, I wish we had more honesty in journalism. No one knows what to believe. Yeah, I agree with you. There is no way that you could take any single one source and believe it. I just wouldn't do that. I would take a credible source or one that you feel is credible and try and find articles that contradict that. A lot of times you will find information that is very needed when you do that kind of thing. Like a lot of people read an article and go like, man, this is the best I've ever seen on this particular topic. And then you start researching things that contradict that and you find out that maybe this particular article was just blown way out of proportion or something. Anyway, you're right. There is no honesty in any single one journalism, I don't believe. Let's see. Who's going to buy these mortgage-backed securities on the market? Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how high the yields go on them. I mean, right now there is plenty of people out there who are looking for yield. They want a return on their investment, and finding it in like U.S. Treasuries, even though the interest rates are beginning to rise, the yields are beginning to rise on these U.S. Treasuries. It's still not really a good investment, considering that you're probably not going to get to beat inflation with that. You know, like you invest with the U.S. Treasuries, if the yield begins to go down on them, then you can be able to sell them for a profit. But if the yields continue to rise, you're going to have to hold on to them till maturity. And if you hold on to them till maturity, then most likely you'll lose your purchasing power to inflation. So you're going to have to go out on the risk scale. And if the mortgage-backed securities, the yields on those begin to rise and the prices begin to fall, well, that could give an investor a place to go to that is somewhat secure. Like most likely people will be making their mortgage payment. It's not a guarantee. We've known this from the great financial crisis that there could be widespread housing market downturn as people stop making their mortgage payments. We were going to experience something very similar to that during 2020 when the pandemic kicked in. The only problem with that is that they stepped in with the forbearance and said, don't worry about making your payment. Well, that nobody expected. I mean, if they did not step up, if the United States government with their fiscal policy and the Federal Reserve with the monetary policy in conjunction with it, if they did not step up and save the housing market with the forbearance, we would have had one hell of a market downturn. But they didn't allow it to happen. And I just don't see them allowing it to happen again. Like everybody is just so convinced that there is definitely going to be a housing market downturn. And when everybody is convinced of it, it probably won't happen. Like nobody saw the housing market coming before, which isn't true. Plenty of people were calling out the housing market during the great financial crisis. But everybody is calling it out now. And they're calling it from the Federal Reserve and the selling of those mortgage-backed securities. So I have to think, well, how many mortgage-backed securities are going to be for sale? Over the course of the pandemic, refinancing was huge. interest rates kept falling and everybody kept rolling their mortgages over into a new lower interest rate mortgage, lowering their payments, taking out the equity in their homes. Well, this produced a lot more mortgage-backed securities out there for the Federal Reserve to buy. When a mortgage is refinanced, it destroys the original mortgage-backed security and they establish a new one. This gave plenty of stuff for the Federal Reserve to continue to buy. If we go into a position in which that people are not refinancing their homes and there's less homes being sold because of BlackRock buying them, or I should say less mortgages being taken out because of institutional buyers, and less inventory out there for people to take a mortgage out on, then there would be less for the markets to buy in general, even if the Federal Reserve was to start selling the mortgage-backed securities. Does that did I kind of get that right? So just simply for the fact that there's a higher interest rate, less people are going to be rolling those mortgages into new mortgages, which is going to put less mortgage-backed securities out there to buy. Let's continue on here. Wouldn't a downturn be good for buyers or young people looking to get into the market? Yes, it is, but I feel that there's probably far less young people looking to get into the market than there is people who are already in the market. And so everybody who is already in the market is going to get hit hard, really hard, especially if they are if they have overextended themselves. So everybody is convinced that inflation is going to be running rampant into the future, and they're very concerned about this inflation coming. And so they want to spend their money now before they have a chance to lose it, including buying a house. Right? You want to buy a house now before you won't be able to because it becomes unaffordable. So all these people, they overextend themselves. They're buying the car, they buy the house, they buy everything that they need now, and they have their paychecks stretched to the very limit. Well, what happens when everything starts to churn? And all of a sudden house prices go down and car prices go down and everything starts to go down. Well, everybody is already stretched out to the limit. They can't save any money to buy these things when they go down in price. They pretty much just have to keep making their payments or they start losing their way of life, right? They start going into bankruptcies or stuff like that. So the people who are going to take advantage of the downturn are the people who have been getting into cash this whole time while everybody has been saying cash is trash. Right? When we go into a recession, everything goes on sale. But if you don't have any cash and you have to sell your assets, but your assets are losing value, and so you're going to end up holding on to them because you don't want to lose the money, who's going to be in the real position then, right? Okay. Oh, thank you very much for the super chat. RR101. What do you forecast for 30-year mortgages by the year end? Still feel prices will still appreciate due to the supply chain shortage. As far as I can tell, I don't see where inventory of homes, especially new construction, is going to be providing that higher inventory that we need. New construction is still very difficult. There's huge supply chain constraints that are taking place, and the idea of getting a home completed is difficult. There's a backlog of incompleted homes. At some point, the supply constraints will ease. Now, I don't know how long they're going to take, and if they start raising interest rates into this, then we're probably going to see the supply constraints continue. Okay? They're probably going to see inflation get worse if they raise interest rates, and I have a theory behind this one as well. Now, as far as the mortgages and where I see those things going, if inventory can rise, if all of a sudden like the supply chains just start freeing up and all of a sudden the flow of material starts coming through again and the prices come down on some of these materials and the lead times come down as well, then you can see a lot of new construction could come onto the market right away. But I don't see that happening. And when I do, I'll say it. I'll say like, man, material is becoming a lot easier to get. But I don't see it happening. So this is going to keep homes off the market. We still have those institutional buyers. That's another thing that's going to keep homes off the market. That's going to keep the mortgage market probably fairly, active as far as who is available out there, but the amount of mortgages are not going to be very many. That's the only thing I'm kind of saying. It's like If you had 100 million homes and only 50 million buyers, then the prices would be very low, right? But we don't. We have like way more people looking to buy a home than there is available homes out there. And some of those people who are willing to buy a home are willing to sign a deal on just about anything. You could probably have 10 or 15% interest rates on a mortgage. They would still sign it. You see where I'm kind of getting at here? Until that inventory level rises, there's no turning on this housing market. I just don't see it. It will happen, but I just don't see it yet. All right. Well, let's continue on here. What was I going to talk about? My theory on something? I forgot what it was already. Physical metals, obviously a good play. Should paper metals be avoided? I own a little bit of paper ETF just for the idea of having it so you have some skin in the game. You pay a little bit better attention when you own some of it. If you're looking to make a move off the make money off the silver move, then I would say like the paper position would be where you want to be, because it's going to be easier to make that profit off of it, because you can just use your online brokerage account. But that's not what I look at silver for. I don't look at silver to make me money or I'm going to profit off of it. I use it as an insurance policy, so I hold the physical. I don't hold paper. Holding the physical is going to be that insurance policy that you're looking for, because if anything should happen with the banking system or anything in the third party, then the physical asset is the only thing that you're going to have that's going to protect you. That's why you need to have the physical. Third party claims, I mean, what if they don't pay? What are you going to do? Go knock on their door and say, hey, you owe me money? What if they don't have a door or a phone to call? I mean, how do you get your money? That would concern me. Supply chains. Oh yeah. Oh, that's what I was going to talk about. Supply chains and the rising of interest rates. So let's think about this for just a second. You break the supply chain. That means the flow of materials can't come through as easy. That means people get nervous about not being able to get their items, and they'll pay more for it to assure that they do get it. And if they can get the items, they might even buy more than what they really want to make sure that they can get those items before the supplies becomes limited. So this creates like this inflation expectation, right? So you expect there's going to be shortages, you buy it for higher prices, and you buy more than what you would normally do. Now, the Federal Reserve says, hey, we got inflation running really hot here. In fact, it's running extra hot, way hotter than we were expecting. We need to raise interest rates to calm down the demand, right? To stamp down the demand for all this stuff. Okay, so you're a manufacturer who's had your supply chains broken. It's difficult to get your items through the supply chain to get them sold. And now the Federal Reserve is saying, hey, we want to put a limitation on the demand. If you were a manufacturer hearing about this, tell me, how likely would you be to ramp up your manufacturing? Probably not very much. And considering that there's already a supply chain constraint taking place, that doesn't leave a whole lot of inventory left in the pipeline, with manufacturers going to be nervous about producing more. You see where I'm kind of getting at here? So the Federal Reserve says, hey, we want to stop this high demand for all these goods out here, but the manufacturers are going to be like, yeah, well, we're not going to produce if you're going to try and slow down the demand. And then there won't be anything left to buy. So we're going to be going into a serious recession, as there's going to be nothing out there. No manufacturing and no inventory. And you're going to be paying a higher yield or paying a higher interest rate on everything. I feel that that's going to be very damaging to the economy. You think about it, it's more about transactions. How much can you, like how many dollars can roll over and how quickly can that happen? If you don't have items to sell, then there's going to be a slowdown in money velocity. Slowing down in money velocity can be very damaging to the economy. You want money velocity, you want massive amounts of transactions. That's economic activity. That's where producers want to produce and sellers want to sell. But if you raise the interest rates and you want to slow down the sales, you're going to slow down the producers and you're going to slow down the economy. All right, onward. Hey, thank you for the $10 super chat from Cheeto Aventus. Howdy from Modesto, California. Well, hello, Modesto. Cash ain't trash. I totally agree. I feel that cash is a great position to be in. I mean, there's basically three positions that I have gone into: cryptos, gold, silver, and cash. That's the three places that I've been going to. I have been purchasing some stocks. Pretty much all of 2021, I purchased every single week. I did $50 worth of Bitcoin and $50 into a stock portfolio. Since October, I stopped making investments and been holding all the cash because I spent all my money onto a down payment. But here pretty soon, I'm going to start going back into cryptos and stocks again. I would really like to see a pretty good downturn in the stock market before I start dollar cost averaging back in again. But really, it doesn't matter. I'm just looking to have that cash position built back up again before I start investing. All right. Let's see here. Would you buy any home builder stock? Probably not yet. I would buy home builder stock, but I personally am going to wait. Like, if I was to do it, like if I was of the mind to buy a home builder stock, I would personally wait until I see the building materials lead times come back. Like, once those start to shorten up and come back to what would be even half of what would be normal, then I would probably jump more into the home builders there. I think that's probably going to give them a much better position to be profitable as far as churning over projects. Right now, you go to build a home and it's very difficult to complete it. That's probably one of the reasons why you're seeing a lot of these home builders suffering right now. Is just that they can't get the turnover that they really want. At least that's kind of what I'm seeing. All right. I'll wait to buy more BTC until it drops to 37 to 38,000. I guess if you're looking to make like big position, then yeah, do it that way. I don't try and time the market. I am terrible market timer, and so I find dollar cost averaging is by far the best way for me to get in. I just buy a little bit. Don't even stress about what the price is. Just do it every Thursday morning at 6 a.m. and everything will be fine. That's how I kind of see it. And I don't know, like I do. I try and time the market, and as soon as I do, it's like almost immediately I lose 20% of my money. So I don't make big purchases just because I hate losing that much, and I do well when I dollar cost average. So you stick with what you do well. Does anyone else agree that paying down debts is priority to investing one's income into wealth? Clean up your budget first before you invest. Yes, that was one of the things that I had picked up earlier on when I was in debt and I decided that I wanted to do something better with my life, is that I was listening to all these investors out there, and one of them said that if you have debt, there is no better return on your money than to pay off your debt first. Because I'm trying not to say ultimately, because what you need to do is that if you have a debt that has an interest rate that you're paying, you have to have an investment that's above that interest rate in order to have the return on your money. So even if you had a credit card, even with a low interest rate, like I had a credit card that had a 10% interest rate on it, even though it had a low interest rate, I would have to have an investment that was far beyond that 10% in order to make it worthy. And even at that, if it was only like, say the investment was 13%, well, that 3% really doesn't do you much good if it's like compared to inflation or something like that. So paying off your debts, especially if it's a high interest debt, is by far the best investment that you can do. And then once your debts are paid off, then you're golden. You just invest in whatever you want. You go and take out low risk, high risk, whatever you want to get into. But paying off your debts first is by far the smartest way to go about it. The only thing that would hold me back from paying off my debts early is if the interest rates are incredibly low. So right now, like, I have this home loan at 3.25%. And paying that off early, I mean, it's appealing to me, But it's not so appealing to me to think that, well, maybe I can invest enough of this money to be far beyond that 3.25%. Like if you could get 13%, well, that's a 10% return. That's much better than paying off the home loan, because you could actually take that 10%, invest it for the next 10, 15 years. You see that extra money that you would have done, and may even be able to pay off the house even more, like pay off even more of the principal with it. You have to be disciplined in order to do something like that, but that's what you could do with a very low interest rate debt, as opposed to not paying it off early. You know, I personally would rather be out of debt just to have that, you know, clear conscience of not owing. But, you know, at 3%, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to pay that off like real early. It would make more sense to invest that money. Okay, let's continue on here. Uneducated Economist, what are your thoughts on GameStop? Jeez, what's that out there? Okay, anyways, crazy noise. My thoughts on GameStop. There's so much internet talk out there when it comes to this stuff that I feel that it ends up getting into a pump and dump, where people are jacking it up by the thoughts of it. People are like, hey, we all gonna pour into this thing at the exact same time. We're gonna drive up the prices and we're gonna crash all the short positions and all this. I fell for that game a long time ago with Crash JP Morgan buy silver. When that campaign was kicking in, they were going to do something very similar. They were going to crash JP Morgan from their huge silver short position, because everybody was going to pull all the physical off the market. We were going to run silver up to $500 an ounce, and JP Morgan wasn't going to be able to cover that short position, and it was going to crash them. They were going to go bankrupt. Did not happen. Did not happen at all. Prices of silver ran up to $50 an ounce. Everybody thought for sure it was going to go to 100 and 500. It did not crash JP Morgan. The price tumbled all the way down into the teens, and I was sitting completely underwater from this pump and dump scheme. Now, I don't know who it was that was dumping silver at $50 an ounce, but I'm pretty sure it was everybody out there who was saying, we need to crash JP Morgan, buy silver, buy it today. Everybody should be out there buying silver. I'm sure it was the same guys who were saying that, who were unloading all their silver at $50 an ounce. So I don't fall for pump and dump schemes. If it gets that big of news out there where it's going to be like this internet movement to do something like that, I back away. I like watching it. Like, I'll stand from a distance and observe, but I'm not playing in the game anymore because I fell for that once. You guys might see it differently too. I mean, that's just the way I see it. Talking about being out of debt, I finally got my hospital bill paid off from my car accident in 2020. Well, good for you, man. I tell you, when I finally paid off my debts, like, I did a video on it, like, you know, going down to the bank and handing them the envelope with $3,000 in it to finally pay off the last of my credit card. And I tell you, man, walking around for the next couple of weeks, you feel so good. Like, you look at the entire world differently. All of a sudden, things are like the whole world is no longer on your shoulders anymore. Like, everything seems better. Things don't aggravate you as much. It's just a better environment to be in. But when you're in debt, especially a lot of debt, and debt that's not profitable to you in any way, it's just like, you know, a bunch of credit card debt that you went and partied it off or something. That debt is very, like, constraining to you, right? It weighs on you and it doesn't feel good at all. So yeah, being out of debt, awesome feeling, really awesome feeling. Hey, more super chats, right? Panda Santi, how do you feel about Sheba Coin, Sheba Inu? Sorry, don't know much about it, not really into it. Again, I saw it as kind of like an internet thing and I backed away from it. I mean, it may do well for other people. I just never researched it. I just thought it was kind of a hype thing and I just didn't get into it. Sorry. Thank you very much, MSW, for the $5 super chat. Very cool of you. Don't have to work as much when you're not in debt either. There's no loans to pay back, equaling more hours needed to work. That's right. You're no longer obligated. Right? If you have a bunch of debt, you got your car loans, you got your house loan, you got your student loans, you got your credit cards, you got all these obligations that you need to meet. Pretty soon, you have no other choice. And you go and you take out a high-paying job, but then you hate your high-paying job because it's super stressful. But there's nothing you can do because taking on a less stressful job means that you have to get paid less. So you can't do it. And now you're just stuck in this grind. Happens to a lot of people. I see it every day. And they try to pretend like they're happy. Like they got this big truck and they, going and hanging out and going to the games and stuff, but you can just see the stress on their face. I mean, like, it was amazing. I look at people out there and I look at like their faces and I see the stress, the wrinkles, the worry. And I wonder, it was just like, man, you look like you're in a good position. I mean, just like the observation, but it's so constant in their life, this weighing of like obligation and must, and if I don't, I'll lose, and it weighs on them so much that you can just see it just stresses them out. And pretty soon their health isn't doing well and they don't look physically fit anymore, and they look sad almost. That's what debt does to you. It's like debt does to you like drugs will do to you. It'll just wear you out the same way. All right, let's see. Man, so many comments too. 457 of you. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody, go and hit the like button, please. It'll start spreading the video around more, and the algorithm will get more people up in here. So please hit the like button. Let's go on here. I refinanced when rates were under 3%, hoping the hyperinflation takes hold and I can pay off the debt with useless dollars. Well, give us some time. I would imagine that you're probably going to be very much into your strategy. Give it 10 or 15 years, you're probably going to be very well into the much higher inflation than what we're seeing right now. Banks will say you can only have a 40-year mortgage. I don't think so. I don't think that's what they'll say. I think banks would be more than happy to loan a bunch of money to you at a short term as much as a long term. I think it really just has to go off of the interest rates. What is surprising to me is that a bank would be willing to loan a person in their 40s a 40-year mortgage. Like, that's what blows me away. It's just like, you really anticipate this person is going to be able to make every single payment going all the way up until they're 80 years old. Like, that's a lot of confidence. I mean, I even wonder, it's just like, I took out my loan, 30-year loan, I'm 45. It was just like, I got to make these payments until I'm 75. I mean, what are the chances of that, So, I mean, I guess if I worked every day of my life until I'm 75, but the idea that I can build a retirement or something like that, that's going to be able to make my house payment and give me a standard of living, I don't know. I don't know about that at all. Thank you very much for the thumbs up, guys. Keep it coming. Let's see here. Opinion on trucking and logistics. Yeah, did you see the article I left down there in the description? I mean, I knew this was happening. I said it a few months ago. I said retail was dead, right? I said retail is dead. There's people who are not coming in. Well, I'm the first in line there, because if they don't buy my products, or if there's less people buying the products, and I know that I'm not the only store who's experiencing this, then you're not going to need as many trucks and warehouses and people and all the other stuff to ship those things around. And this is what we're starting to experience now. There's a slowdown in logistics taking place because there was a slowdown in retail, even though you're hearing about the overwhelming consumer demand. It doesn't exist, right? I've been saying that for some time. The demand came from a bullwhip effect. And this is where I feel that a lot of people have misinterpreted what the demand was, because just like I thought the Fernco fitting description, the plumbing fitting, was an excellent way to describe it, because God, I'm trying hard not to say ultimately, guys. That story, that analogy was just about perfect for the bullwhip effect. And I'll give it to you guys here real quick. So when the pandemic kicked in and we had a bunch of shortages taking place, there was a particular plumbing fitting that a lot of these excavators like to use, especially if you're doing like groundwork, septic work, and you're trying to connect two different like uncommon pipes together. Like say plastic to cast iron. There's these rubber Fernco fittings. It's just a rubber coupling with two hose clamps on each side of it. Well, when they came up missing, a lot of these guys who needed these things to complete their jobs, they were in a panic to find them. I mean, they're holding up tens of thousands of dollars because they don't have this little $10 part. So when they did come in, the guys who buy these things, they would buy all of them off the shelf to make sure that they had a supply of them. Even though they only needed the one to do the job, they bought all of them. Well, my inventory shows that there is a demand for these things, especially if you have multiple customers coming in doing the exact same thing. So my inventory is showing that we need to start ordering more of these things because there's a demand for these things that we cannot seem to keep in supply. As those orders start traveling through the supply chain, so really it goes to a wholesaler who's looking at these orders coming in, and if you got multiple stores doing this, they go to the buyers, to the manufacturers, and they're telling them about these orders. The manufacturers are saying, man, there is a huge demand for these things. We need to produce a lot of them. They produce all these particular fittings, shove them out there into the system, and pretty soon they hit the shelves and realize there's nobody buying these things because there never really was a demand for them in the first place. It was just the fact that they couldn't get them and they bought up all of them. It was a panic buy. So this panic buying sent a wave of demand, like this overwhelming consumer demand into the system. And so all these manufacturers and wholesalers were looking at these orders going, oh my gosh, look at this huge demand that's taken place that really didn't exist. Okay? So that's kind of what happened here. And that's, I don't know, I kind of lost train of thought there, but anyway, let's continue on here. All right, thank you very much. DPIE, a coffee from Swiss friend. Cheers from Zurich. Thank you so much, man. Economic Stalker, $10. Thank you so much for the super chat. You guys are so awesome and so generous. I can't believe it. Nick Augustine, enjoy a cup of chili. Cheers from Minnesota. Thank you so much. I will enjoy a cup of chili with that. Not your problem. Love the handle, man. That's awesome. When will you do another meetup? Need day off. Okay. I don't know. Let's do another one next Thursday. Let me figure out a coffee shop to go to. I like the 14th Street Cafe one because it's a big coffee shop. There's a lot of tables and a lot of places to sit. But I like the Coffee Girl. Coffee Girl is right out on the river, out on Pier 39, which is a nice like river view. And if the weather is nice, we could sit outside. So there's plenty of room out there. So maybe next Thursday, 9 to 11, we'll go to the Coffee Girl. How does that sound? Coffee Girl here in Astoria. All right. Any opinions on mortgage real estate investment trusts with rising interest rates? Yeah, I don't know. Those real estate investment trusts, they seem like it was a pretty good deal when the mortgages, when the rates were going down, because the mortgage-backed securities, the prices were going up and the rates were going down. If that goes in the opposite direction, I might be a little bit concerned about those. But then again, I'm not exactly positive on how those are structured. So if the interest rates go up and those things, I don't know, do they start paying out more? So it might actually be a pretty good investment on it. I don't know. I think that one would probably be somebody who's a little bit more of a professional when it comes to those real estate investment trusts to kind of get an idea on what the cause and effects from a mortgage-backed security sell-off would be. If the interest rates rise, you could get more of a yield on them, which could make sense on holding it. I don't know. You live in Goonie City. Lucky. Yeah, I sure do. This is definitely Goonie Town. You know what's funny about the Goonies movie is that it is more popular to everybody outside of this town than it is to people who are within the town. But yeah, we're all Goonies. We all laugh and joke around about the movie and really enjoy it. So, a Coffee Girl. No, the store is called Coffee Girl. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for the $100 super chat. I really appreciate it, man. Bust your butt to get out of debt and build up investments. If both husband and wife are in agreement on this, it is amazing what you can build in 5 years. Live off half your income, invest the rest. Your investments will fund your life. TMC, thank you very much. That is excellent advice, and I totally agree with you. Um, I'm just not sure what to invest in, and that's really what it comes down to. I would like to invest into the stock market, but at this point, I really just feel that the stock market is going to be hit pretty hard, and there would be like a nice buying opportunity or to start buying in opportunity. Since I'm not really a market timer, I'd rather just start dollar cost averaging in at the bottom of the market. But since I'm a terrible market timer, it's really just a matter of being in the market at any given time. Isn't that right, TMC? Just to get in and start doing it. Favorite movie ever? The Goonies is a great movie, and I would definitely have to put it on my top three most favorite movies out there. All right, loved your Sri Lanka video. Anything new you've seen on that situation? Um, I haven't. I haven't seen or read anything on it. I should probably go and do some research since I did that video. That's pretty much the last time I was reading anything on it. So it would be nice to see what an update is going on as far as the Sri Lanka conditions. All right. Please tell me some better news for prefab trusses. Watching workers right now installing concrete lintels on my new CBS house. Everything has been over builder allowance. Oh, um, okay. Well, I don't know where you are as far as trusses go. It was funny, the meet and greet that I did this morning, the gentleman, Paul, he was actually doing a new construction right now, and he had just recently ordered some trusses. And he was telling me the original company that he had gone with for the trusses told him that they were going to be 14 weeks out. So he started looking for other truss companies to try and find a shorter lead time. He did find another company who I guess had been in business for a while. They had recently retooled or streamlined their business. Anyway, they told him that they were going to have trusses available for him in like 3 to 4 weeks, which to me is just like incredible. I haven't heard of a lead time so short in a very long time. I thought that was quite incredible. And then on top of that, he said that the original quotes were for around he said anywhere from $20,000 to $23,000 for these trusses. And this particular company with the short lead time had it down at like $19,000. So that's really encouraging. I personally haven't seen that within the customers that I'm working with. I believe he said he was up from Raymond, Washington. So that's pretty encouraging in my opinion. Still not great considering that most of the trust companies out there are probably still at that 14-week lead time and incredibly expensive. So, let's see here. Harry Dent, your thoughts? I like Harry Dent. I haven't listened to him in quite some time. But I like his thoughts on the demographics as far as the housing market and how like a lot of the people who own homes right now are an aging population who, for lack of a better term, are going to die off and leaving these homes to either go into the market or whatever, add to inventory. But I like Harry Dent's take on things, but to be honest, I haven't listened to him in quite a few months, so I don't know what he's been saying lately. Uneducated Economist, you should invest in gentrifying ghetto real estate, garbage to gold. Yeah, I've seen the gentrification taking place here in Astoria, and it's pretty incredible. This place used to be full of working class people and businesses and style, and it's all gone into like more trendy and like stay at home working and like fancy breweries and businesses, like all the stuff that we've talked about as far as the Cantillon effect, like what I see here happening is that a lot of people are moving to my area who came from like Seattle or Portland or California, where they sold like $1.5 million home. They come down here, buy a $500,000 home. Now they got $1 million to spend, and they want those conveniences and those nice things that they had back home. They want to bring them to this area. Well, once they bring them into this area, the people who lived and worked here, they can no longer afford to live and work here because the rents are now gone up and the cost of living is outrageous and there's nothing available. So they end up leaving the area. This is that new money pouring into the system. And unfortunately, it drives a lot of people out of having a good standard of living or a good way of living onto the streets or out of the area. And something that I don't think a lot of people even in my town recognize, because there's constant talk of like the homeless population and how it's getting out of control. Well, it's getting big. Like there's a lot of homeless people around. They're driven out of the Portland area. They're coming to the coast because there's less of them here. So you got to find a place to be. And now they're starting to fill up the business doorways, and they're, like right now I'm looking at 3 motorhomes that are parked behind the business that I worked at. There's no camping or overnight camping allowed here, but there's no place else for them to be. And so what are they going to do? Run them off to another place that they're not supposed to be? It's happening everywhere, and I don't see any way of fixing this. Like a lot of times these people come together and they're like, what do we need to do to try and come up with a solution for this? Here's the problems. Here are our solutions. Well, your problems are symptoms and your solutions are cures for symptoms. That isn't going to work. We got to understand that it's cyclical. It's going to take place. This new money is going to continue to pour in. It's going to drive the working class out and drive more people into poverty. And the people who have the stuff are going to be complaining that everybody else is, ruining their wonderful neighborhood. I don't know how else to describe it, but that's what's taking place. And I think if people could understand that it's more of a cyclical issue and not a condition of like rule changes that can make it better, that's not going to happen. Anyway, I'm kind of babbling there. Let's go on. Let's talk about something else. The thing is that you have to invest for the long term. If you are expecting to pull out money within the next 5 years, you might be better off doing something else with your money. That's right. You have to, that's exactly right. You have to be disciplined. You have to say, this money is going to go into investments and that's what it's going to do. And I do not need that money for anything else, especially for emergency purposes or just to have fun with or something. Something I'd like to add to: economics should be taught in public schools somewhere around 8th or 9th and 10th grade, but you don't see it in most public curriculums. Yeah, and then on top of it, what is it they're going to teach them about economics? You can teach them Keynesian economics and nothing else, and that's what they would learn. And they would believe in this debt-based currency and how to continue with this debt-based currency. If you're going to teach them economics, you have to teach them everything about economics. And there's no way that you could possibly learn everything about economics because it's constantly evolving and changing and it's organic. So really it's picking up economic theories and then try to understand what it is that's happening and apply those economic theories to that situation. Hopefully you can understand, what's happening. So many people are just so convinced, like on a particular line of thinking. Like they will only follow the Austrian School of Economics and only believe in, honest monies and never try and take in any kind of other thoughts. And then you miss out on what could happen or what central banks' theories are going to be because you're so stuck in this like honest money position and that's the way everything should be. So it's more about like taking in a lot of economic theories and then try to apply that to what you're seeing going on out there. And that could be very difficult because what is the economic theory you're going to teach somebody? There's there's so many, you know. Would you do a YouTube interview chat with Richard Hart, the Hex? Hey, you guys have asked me that a few times. Yes, absolutely, I will. The Pulse Chain crypto founder. Think I could organize it. You know, I've been asked to do an interview with them a few times, and I should. Absolutely. Um, I've been. I have to apologize, guys, to especially for those who have been sending me emails. I have been not doing well as far as replying to the emails and being more on top of that kind of stuff. I've had a lot of stuff kind of happening and going on, so I've been scatterbrained on a lot of things, and I'm just trying to get like the videos out, and some of the other stuff that I've been working on is kind of, you know, falling behind. We're gonna get that stuff back up and moving again. You know, we're uploading podcasts. We're gonna try and find other platforms to put videos on. I'm gonna try and do more interviews. I'm gonna try and be more responsive on the emails and try and be a little bit more involved into the channel. It's just that so much stuff had come down that I just, to be honest with you, I just felt overwhelmed, and I just needed to kind of just back away from a little bit and get my head straight. So. All right. Prices are mainly based on emotion, speculation, fear, and greed. Yep, I totally agree. Inflation expectation is more about inflation than actual inflation. It's the idea that people are going to be concerned about losing their purchasing power and spending their money now, causing inflation more than monetary policy can do it. I mean, at least that's what I'm saying. Let's see. Wouldn't your best investment be yourself? Build a house for spec, capitalize on your knowledge, skills, and connections. Yeah, investing in yourself is absolutely the best investment that you can do, especially if you can invest in yourself to start a business, to gain knowledge, to do something that is going to benefit you, your family, your future. Investing in yourself is by far the best thing that you could ever invest in. And, you know, investing in your family, like, you know, making sure that your family is doing well, because there's going to come time when you're not going to do well and your family is going to be there for you. And if you can take good care of your family, they're going to take care of good care of you when you're not doing well. So yes, definitely invest in yourself and think about investing in yourself. In your opinion, what is the best plank material for deck that gets pure sun in Southern California? That's a tough one. Now, I hear a lot of the composite deckings out there can get incredibly hot, especially in the sun. Now, I'm up here in the Pacific Northwest. I don't really get concerned about direct sunlight damaging things or creating an issue because we just don't experience a whole lot of that. So if it is that you're looking at that, I mean, I guess a lighter colored composite decking might be a way to go. I personally like wood decks. I like things that are all made of like cedar, or, you know, some of the hardwoods like the ironwoods. Those can get quite expensive and hard to maintain. If you're not into maintaining that type of stuff, then yeah, composite is definitely the way to go. But, you know, really, just the treated lumber, I feel if you're going to be maintaining a deck, then really just the treated lumber. I mean, in my area, it's just so, everything just beats the hell out of it. Like, the weather is just so damaging around here, is that if it's not made of plastic or stainless steel, it's going to rot. That's all that comes down to it. So I like the treated lumber, and then maintaining that treated lumber, like putting a preservative or an oil treatment on it once a year. That to me is probably the best way to go about it, but that's in my area up here. Since the price of wood has gone up so high, the decking isn't near, like the treated decking is not nearly as popular as the composite decking is now. So it seems to me that more and more people are moving towards the composite decking and getting away from the traditional wood deck that you would have to maintain. Anyway, let's continue on. Did I get another super chat there? Yes, I did. No, I didn't. That was okay. Buy raw land and improve it. Yeah, that is a good way to go about investment. The only thing that kind of concerns me about buying land and just owning land is that what happens if you need a little piece of that money? Like, something happens and you're all of a sudden realize that you're short of funds and you need to sell some of your investment. If you have raw land, then you have to take out like an equity loan or something like that in order to tap into the value of your property. If you had an investment or silver or something like that, then you can just sell a piece of it off. You don't have to sell the whole thing, or you don't have to take out a loan to acquire some of that money. So that's the only thing that kind of holds me back on just investing in land itself, and only land, is that, if you need a little piece of that money, how do you get it without taking out a loan? So, but other than that, I think land is an excellent investment to get into. There's only so much of it available out there, and with populations growing, I feel that, land is probably, especially for a long-term position, is probably a very excellent way to go about investing. All right. Hey, another $5 super chat from Nicola. Between Fed pity rate and Russian forced default, money will not buy much soon. There is no good investment when you are buying it. I don't know. If you're talking about money itself, just the dollar itself, I still have to. Thank you for the $5 super chat, by the way. I'm still under the belief that at some point we are going to see a dollar bubble, and we are going to find that the dollar will buy more than what anybody had ever anticipated ever buying. It's probably going to be in the deepest recession that anybody has in modern time has ever experienced. It could be like a major depression happening at the time. If you have cash in hand, I feel that you're probably going to have some serious purchasing power with it. That window is going to be very small, and a lot of people are going to be misguided at that time. They're going to think that holding cash for a long-term position is going to be a good idea because of how much it can buy. It won't be. People are going to be holding on to cash when they should be getting out of it. Just like right now, I feel that people should be getting into cash when everybody is saying cash is trash. Why? Because if we go into recession, you're going to need that cash in order to buy those depreciated items. That's just me. I mean, unless you have like excellent credit and a guarantee that you can get the loan at the time, which there is no guarantees and stuff like that, you could find yourself missing out on opportunities if you don't have the cash already. All right. Don't buy a house now. Instead buy... Oh, dude, I ain't saying that. All right. Okay. You're welcome. Thanks for the reply. Well, thank you, Nicola, for an additional $5. I really appreciate that. You guys are so supportive on this channel. I just can't believe it. Like, you guys are just so supportive. Let's see here. People are saying stocks are trash. I'm buying the dip. Yeah. I would agree. I mean, like I said, I'm trying to build up my cash position right now, but really I would like to be investing in the stock market, especially dollar cost averaging in. With it being, down right now, and not down a lot, it's just down some. Buying in just a little bit right now isn't a bad idea. I mean, not in my opinion, So yeah, buy the dips when you can. I mean, does a world power gold back a currency in the next 5 to 10 years? No, I don't think we'll ever see a gold back like world reserve currency. I think we might see like a gold back cryptocurrency at some point where you can use that. But as far as like a nation or the world going into like a metal standard or a gold standard, I don't see that happening personally. I think that takes too much control away from the powers that be, and they just simply won't allow it. The people, on the other hand, if they were able to get their get their senses about them, and we did have a reliable third party who could facilitate a gold-backed crypto, I would be all about that. I would totally use a gold-backed crypto if it was accepted around, around commerce and stuff. But right now, I just don't see it happening. I honestly think that the world central banks are going to push everybody into a central bank digital currency, and everything will be tokenized. Everything, including us. We as individuals will be tokenized as well, which is really scary to think about. House prices definitely peaked. Peaked when? See, this is one thing that I've been watching now. I've had other people come to me and they're like, man, I saw the estimated value of my house had dropped $10,000 or something like that. I haven't seen that on mine. Like, I'm watching my property, and I don't know if it just happens to be caught in some weird algorithm or something, but it keeps going up in price. And so I'm waiting for that to turn. Like, I'm like, okay, I mean, it should have happened already. The amount that it's gone up is ridiculous. And it scares the hell out of me, to be honest with you. It goes up more than I can earn in a day, if you can believe that. Like, between my wife and I, like, we don't earn between the two of us as much as that house goes up in a day. And that, I don't even like the idea of that. So it just tells me that there is obviously something very wrong with the housing market, and the idea that we're going to have a reversal, if it goes anywhere near the extreme of what it's going up, that can be very scary. Now, I know a lot of people had made comments saying that, oh, Simon's going to be underwater on his house. Even if we were to have, say, a 20% downturn in the housing market right now, I think I would still not be underwater on my house. So if we saw something like a 25, 30, 40% downturn in the housing market, that would be pretty concerning for me in my purchase of the home. However, I don't think I'm going to be so concerned about like my home as much as I would be concerned about the entire economy out there going to hell if we saw a 50% reduction in home prices. I mean, that it's very well possible. I mean, I'm not saying that it ain't going to happen. What I'm saying is like, I'm not going to be concerned about my loan as much as I'm going to be concerned about everything else going on out there. What margin percent are home buyers in your market making? What percent decline in the market would result in no more 3 bedrooms being built? I don't know. Oops. I don't know about that one. I'm not sure about the stats on it. Did I just get it? Okay, here we go. Hey, Tim Pike, right on, man. $9.99 super chat. Thank you so much. My house went up $25,000 last year and a half, and still rising. Clatsop County, Oregon. Yeah, I think there's something unique about our area here. And, we always seem to be like at the tail end, of everything. Like, as the rest of the nation went into a recession during like 2008, Clatsop County really didn't see a recession for, I don't know, probably a couple of years after that. Because in 2007, we had a huge storm come through. It was like a major hurricane force storm. And it blew the roof off of like every house in the county, actually in the whole Pacific Northwest. Down trees everywhere. It made a mess out of the area. And the rebuild from that took quite a while. I mean, it took a couple of years to rebuild all that, to rebuild from that storm. And so it kept the economy going pretty good in the Pacific Northwest during that time. But then after 2009 and got into 2010, then yeah, it hit us pretty hard by that point. So thank you very much, Tim. I really appreciate that. All right. Do you think there will be another housing bubble since the average debt keeps going up? I believe that we are in a housing bubble at this point right now. In fact, the Federal Reserve said it as well. Is it going to pop? is it going to deflate, or is it going to stand still, or is it going to keep going? I mean, there's a lot of questions out there. I honestly don't feel that the housing prices can continue to go up. I just don't see that happening, just because of the interest rates going up, and the inability of the buyers out there. Only problem with that being is that there's not enough inventory, so there's going to be sales of homes. People are going to continue to buy it. It's just like, it's a market that just doesn't make sense, right? Conditions will change. At some point, the housing market will turn. And to what extent is this, like, that would be like the major question. Like, a lot of people are anticipating that there's going to be this housing crash, that houses are going to go to zero or something like that. I don't think that's going to happen. I could even see where like houses plateau out, where they just stop going up, or maybe even drop a little bit for years. Like, what if they just don't move for 10 or 15 years? I mean, that could be a scenario as well, where maybe some areas go up or down, but for the most part, home prices go up like 0.5% a year. I mean, is it possible? Sure. Anything's possible, right? All right. Do you think the commercial banks will capitulate at the Davos? I don't know. I don't know what I'd imagine in 10 years, we're going to have a financial banking system that is completely new, that doesn't look anything like what we're experiencing right now. And this, like, in fact, there was a short video that was sent to me. When I get done uploading this video, I'll post that link into the description of this one. And I forget, it was at some forum, some economic forum. It wasn't like the World Economic Forum. It was some other like central banking forum or something like that. And there's this lady talking about it, and she's basically saying that this financial system has pretty much come to an end, and that there's going to be a new one established here. And she was ultimately again with that damn word, she was talking about the Great Reset. I have a feeling that's going to happen very quickly. Like, once it starts in, which it already kind of has, but once it really starts to pick up steam, it's going to just take place very quickly. And although we hear like a lot of times, like, well, the old folks and the poor, they're not going to be able to work on anything outside of cash, they won't have any other choice. It's just going to move into that direction, and they just won't have any other choice but to deal with a new digital currency and a tokenized nation. Anyway. Let's see here. I bought my first house last summer for $30,000 cash. Really? There is nothing wrong with it, but it is in the Midwest, Danville, Illinois. Yeah, actually a buddy of mine just bought some property in Missouri, and man, he paid like an ungodly low price for a house as well. It was something like $30,000 or $35,000 for a house. Couldn't tell you the condition or location of it, but for a house, that's a pretty good price. In 10 years, real estate loans will be 50-year terms, ultimately. Yeah. I don't think in 10 years. I think in 10 years, you'll probably see a lot of 40-year loans, but I don't know, maybe we'll see 50-year loans. Okay. I'm getting ready to list. If it sells, it sells. I think I need to at least see what I can get. Well, if you can unload a piece of property right now, I would certainly do it. Especially if you have one to sell. It's the big cities that are having a problem with no tenants. People are moving to where the land is. Yeah. Do you drink there, boss? Do I drink? I don't drink. I don't drink alcohol anyway. I got this here kombucha, this ginger ale kombucha, but that's about, I guess it has a tiny bit of alcohol in it. I don't think it's enough to get you drunk, even if you drink 100 of them. Who will be making loans? Well, that's the capitalist out there, right? The capitalists who lend into the system, they will be making loans. That's the thing. That's what I find funny about, like, everybody blaming capitalists and stuff like that, or capitalism. And I'm thinking, even if you're in a socialist, communist, I don't care what kind of government you're in, there's going to be a handful of people out there who are going to be lending into that system and profiting off of that. So you can make rules all you want. You can make rules that will limit you and how you know how effective of a capitalist you can be, but it doesn't stop capitalism. Basically, if you go and make a bunch of rules that limit capitalism, what you're doing is you're limiting yourself. Let's see here. High taxes is what drove out people in the big city, especially in Nevada. Or is it Nevada, New York? I don't know. NYC, New York City, yeah. Let's see here. Banks make loans. That is their business model. Yep. Capitalism is just common sense. It is. I mean, it really is. I mean, how do you get the best products for the cheapest price to the customer? You use capitalism to do that. A lot of people want to blame capitalism as the problems for society, and it's not. I mean, problems in society would exist no matter what, right? It isn't capitalism's fault. I mean, it's just the way things are. I mean, I just love it when people just like want to blame everything on capitalism. I think that is just such a an easy scapegoat, to just say it's all because of somebody else's profit. Profit is what drives you. It's what motivates you. It's what makes things better, All right. You're confusing capitalism with markets. Okay. Let's see here. Selling my house currently under contract to buy 50 acres with a 100-year-old house, which would need lots of renovation. Took a $50,000 discount, so first home buyer could buy the previous house. Oh, I see. So you took it down so that they could get in? Yeah, blaming capitalism is shallow thinking. Yeah, dude, how much do you make on videos like this per hour? Well, today was really good. But for the today's super chats were really good. But there's, I don't know, it's just whatever somebody wants to send me, I guess. I mean, the ad revenues are pretty decent. I mean, but that fluctuates incredibly. Some videos, you'll have 10,000 views on it, and you might get $30 for 10,000 views, and then other times you'll have 10,000 views on it and make $100. It's just it really depends on what kind of commercials you get, how many people are watching, what the algorithm is doing at the time. Doing the live streams with the super chats, that's really nice because people tip you, and you get to answer questions and stuff like that. I mean, I wish I could give you a definite answer on how much YouTube pays, but it does pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't do it, I mean, I would do it anyway, but I mean, I wouldn't do I've had people tell me you should be putting out more content, you should be making as much money as you possibly can. I don't want to do that. I want to put out videos. I want to do the channel. I want to put out, good content and have a growing channel. The money will come from that. I don't know. It's hard to talk about how much money the channel makes, just because I just don't want to brag about the best month I ever had, but it was pretty good. I mean, it does really well. When lumber ran up to the 1,700 per thousand mark, and everybody was trying to figure out what the hell was going on, and I'm getting 80,000 views on a video, I mean, yeah, that month did really well. I mean, it was surprisingly well, but that was very, very rare, and I doubt I'm going to get to experience something like that again, with the lumber, moving up as fast as it is, and then having all those videos talking about lumber ahead of time. It just gave me a nice little niche into it. Anyway, let's move on. Stop talking about money. No, let's talk about money. Let's stop talking about my money. Karl Marx did not coin the word capitalism. Okay. Let's see here. Who did that? Let's see. Capitalists love one true Scotsman's logic fallacies because it makes it impossible for folks to see the grift for what it is. Okay. Is that a newer vehicle? Nope. I paid $1,200 for this S10 that has like 150,000 miles on it. I have $100,000 in the bank. How do I turn that into $1 million? I don't know. How do you take any trips to the beach? Have you taken any trips to the beach lately? No, but I'm going to go tomorrow. How about that? I'll go to the beach tomorrow. Smoking on the truck? Yeah, I thought it was. What do you think of 1.6 million of the empty houses in Florida? Yes, that's something that really gets to me because I see a lot of empty houses, here in Astoria as well. And it drives me nuts because I think a lot of these houses that are here are like vacation rentals. So, you got empty houses and people who need a place to live. And it's just, it kills me. And also see like people buying houses here and then turning them into Airbnbs. So that takes out even more homes for the residents to be in. Anyway. What is your favorite conspiracy theory? It's not a conspiracy theory. It's the truth. It's the sovereign citizen. We ultimately are, oh gosh damn it with that ultimately thing. A lot of people don't realize it, but you are a sovereign citizen of this nation. You're not of anybody's authority. You are your own authority. You don't stand under anybody. When you take control of your life, you are taking control of you as an individual. And I know this is really difficult for people to kind of wrap their heads around. Go and look at any letter from any government, and you're going to find that your name is spelled in all capital letters. That is your straw man. That is not you. There is a difference in that. If you can figure out that story, that sovereign citizen, and your straw man, and figure out who your straw man truly is, that is probably the greatest conspiracy theory that has taken place right now. If you can figure that one out. A lot of people know what I'm talking about. Other people are just like completely clueless by what I just said. Those who understand what I just said would agree with me. A citizen definition is not sovereign. Yeah, right. You have the right to operate as a private individual. We must understand public and private. Strawman operates in the public, and your rights protected in the private. That is. See, I knew a lot of you guys would understand this, and this is. Yeah, if you wanted to dive into a very deep rabbit hole, dive into that one. And I'm not going to continue on with it because the FBI and the governments and everybody, they just hate people who talk about this kind of thing. And I don't want to get flagged in such manners, It's nothing that I'm like terribly concerned about. I just don't want the channel to get flagged for it. Let's see. Incorporate in capital letters. Sovereign is upper lowercase signature. That's right. Well, that's it. So it's pretty interesting. Like, here, you want to see something interesting? You don't believe me? Go pull out your checkbook right now. That checkbook that you write checks on. Go and look at where you sign your name. And you're going to notice that the line that you sign your name on is not a line at all. It's actually a bunch of little dots. And it's not even dots. If you go and take a magnifying glass and you look, you're going to find that that line is actually words. And you know what it says? Authorized signature. You know why? It's because you are the authorized signature or person who is authorized to sign for the straw man. That's why it's not a line, it's words. Think about that for a second. Go and check it out. Go and pull out a checkbook and grab a magnifying glass or your cell phone and just zoom it in and look, and you're going to see that that line is not a line, it's words. Read the dollar. All debts, public and private. Yeah, but stores are not required to accept dollars. Did you know that? All right. Absolutely correct. Yeah. Let's see here. I can hardly see my screen. It's just reflection here. Um, in just the word capital with isms suffix used many moons before the Marxist early 13th century. Okay. Absolutely 100% correct. Okay, maybe Marx stole the idea off of. Boy, you guys are having a deep conversation on that one. I'll let you guys continue on with it. Where else can we talk about? Um, you say they're saying there is private versus public? Yeah. Yeah. You are, as an individual, walk the earth as a private person, right? But when you conduct business, you're conducting that using your straw man in the public, you know. So anytime you ever sign anything or whatever, you're signing an authority of your straw man. You know, that's why you don't claim a name, right? My mom calls me Simon. I'm of the Corone family. I don't have a name. You know, what's your birthday? I don't know. I can't remember. I was too young. You know, these are the type of things that you say when you are a sovereign person. A checkbook? What is that? Yeah, I know. It's so funny. I see people come in to like, especially like, you know, an older gentleman or something like that. He's looking at this check. He's super confused. He doesn't know how to do it anymore. You know, and it's just like I totally am the same. Like, where do you sign? What is this? You know. The uppercase is legal fiction. That is why I only go by my house name, e.g., surname. There it is. You think 100K in the bank at 32 is good, or am I behind? Well, I'm 45 and I have about 10 times less that. No, probably more like 12 times less that. So, yeah, I'd say you're doing a little better than I am. You know, I'm way behind, so, you know, you're not as bad a shape as I am. Let's see here. How come you don't say Simon Says before you give economic advice? I don't know. Impacts of the fertilizer shortage. Yep, it's going to be a tough one. But then again, like, you know, I said it a long time ago. I put out a video. I said, your time to prepare is gone. And I kid you not, it was from that point on that everything started coming into short supply. I'm not worried about the food, personally. Only because I come from a land of plenty. There is so much food opportunity here in my area that the idea that there's going to be a huge food shortage, I mean, it's very well possible. I just don't see it happening. I see food getting very expensive, right? I don't necessarily think there's going to be a shortage. Now, for some people, that's going to be a shortage because they won't be able to afford it. Now, I said it back then that you really need to get into canning. And I did canning videos. My wife even showed how you can go down to the store, buy chicken, get the jars and lids, and can up your food and have it stored and ready for when there is a run on food, or it gets very expensive, or it just becomes unavailable. You will have it already stored, and you will know how to preserve if all of a sudden you come into a bunch of food. Like, you know, somebody comes to you and is like, man, I just had a great fishing trip. I got 100 pounds of fish. You want it? I mean, what are you going to do with 100 pounds of fish? Most people would be like, hell no, I'll take 2 pounds of fish, right? But if you have 100 pounds of fish and you know how to process that, that is a hell of a good skill to have. You could bring my wife 100 pounds of anything, and she will have it in the jars, on the counter, in the pantry by the end of the day. That's how she does it. She's good at it. So that is probably one of the best skills to have, and then having all those supplies on hand. If you are worried about there being a food shortage due to the fertilizer or whatever's, you know, issues are going to come, that to me would be the best position for you to go to, is to learn to can and learn to preserve food. Whiskey is very good for barter. It is. Rice is very good long-term food for emergencies. Yep. 50-pound bag of rice, 50-pound bag of beans, 50-pound bag of oats. At least you'll have something to eat. You can, you know, If you don't eat it, it's not like a huge investment. It's not like you just like, you know, invested half your savings into a food supply. That's going to carry you along for a long time. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but at least you'll have something to eat, you know. The toilet paper shortage wasn't real. The food shortage won't be real. It's all in my basement. Well, that's good. How should I hedge against current market volatility? I don't know. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, I personally put, I put it around. Like I, I mean, stocks is gold, crypto, cash. Like you got to be everywhere. I couldn't tell you what's gonna be the best place and the worst place to be in. I think being in multiple locations is probably going to be a pretty good idea. If any one of those happens to fail, at least you'll have something else that's backing it up. So, are you raising meat birds this year? No, I'm actually teaming up with the neighbor who has a lot more space and ended up with all my old processing equipment that I had. So he's going to raise the birds. I'm going to split the cost of them, and then I'll go over and help him process them when it's time. So I'm not going to raise meat birds personally myself, not this year anyway. The neighbor will, but I'll take you over and show you guys some of the footage of what he has going on. I think we're going to do them in a batch of 100, and then do two butcherings, 50 and 50 at different weights. At least I think that's what the plan was. And yeah, we'll split the cost of the birds and feed, and split the duty of processing, and yeah, we'll split the birds. So I think that's going to be a pretty good deal. Yeah, anyway. How was the coffee house meetup? It was good. Gentleman Paul here, I'll show you. He actually gave me some pretty cool stuff. The gentleman who came and hung out with me, Paul, and then there was a couple of other guys who popped in for a little bit too, and had a cup of coffee and talked. But Paul was really cool. He gave these for my kid, these traditional looking arrowheads. He makes these things, and actually he makes traditional bow and arrows from, straight from like the branches of trees and stuff. I think he was English yew or something like that. I can't remember exactly what type of tree that he was getting it from. But then he makes these things. He makes the arrowheads, he makes the bows, he makes the arrows, he makes everything. And they're all of the traditional sense. And they're so well built, he says, that a lot of people will actually hunt with these things. So that was pretty cool. I have to really appreciate the guy giving me these to give to my kids. I think that's probably one of the cool skills to have, especially from like a prepping kind of point of view, that here you can be dropped into the middle of nature with absolutely, with hardly anything as far as the supply goes, and you can manufacture yourself something that can not only possibly protect you, but then also be a source of, acquiring food. So I think that is a really cool skill. So that was really neat getting those and hanging out with Paul this morning. So thank you very much for coming and hanging out too, if you happen to be watching. So it was good, and we'll try it again. We'll try over at the Coffee Girl next Thursday, 9 o'clock. We'll meet up there and hang out and talk about economics. Let's see what else we got going on here. How is the job situation looking over there? Do businesses still have problems finding workers? Yes. A friend of mine who owns a restaurant, she did an interview. It was hard enough just to get people to come in for the interview. And this is for a serving position, right? Like, just serving food. And the individual requested $25 an hour to serve at a restaurant in Astoria. And I imagine there's probably restaurants out there that do pay that kind of money to the wait staff, but that seemed pretty high, and unfortunately that was one of the only applicants that had come in. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to find people to work out here. But then I don't really blame her, because if you don't get $25 an hour, you're gonna afford to live. Like, you can't even find an apartment for under $1,800 a month. I mean, I imagine there's some cheaper ones, but it's expensive to live here. I don't know, like, I don't know how you're supposed to make it off of a regular job. You know, you'd have to have side incomes. That's the only way you can really do it. You know, and that's one thing. I've always had side incomes, no matter what. Like if I was, like I did the hobby farm, we would make a little bit of money off of the chickens. I would call bingo. I would do like, I'd work for friends if they had like, lawn mowing company or something like that. I'd help mow lawns or just do whatever. Like I have always tried to make money on the side, never just like my 9 to 5er. I would have that to pay my bills, and then if I wanted beer money or whatever, I'd have to go out and find extra work. $25 plus tips or no tips? No, 25 plus tips, right? Wait staff usually get minimum and make great tips. Yeah, I mean, and it's a nice restaurant too. It's not some like divey little restaurant. I mean, this is like, it's a good restaurant. It's really nice. Strange. What is this, Captain Strange? My professional opinion is that the demand for tires won't be going away. Tire industry is screwed. Well, you guys are talking about tires, huh? What's going on with the tire industry? What you do for a living? Sorry, I do retail sales at a hardware store. I do lumber sales. I do mainly my daily job, besides just working the counter and ringing customers up, is I do a lot of the special orders. So when customers are coming in looking for like a special order window, door, siding, trim, something that is not typically like sold at the store, like we don't have it in stock, I'm the one who tracks it all down for them. So if somebody has like, hey, I got this door, it's really unique, it's like of an odd size or something, I'm the one who deals with that for them. So I do a lot of the special orders at this store that I work at. Oh, hey, thank you very much, Mark, for the super sticker. Very nice of you. You guys are so awesome. Commercial paper turned into toilet paper. Yeah, it sure did. We're talking about Evergrande again with their commercial paper. Yeah, that's what happened. I mean, and that is something that I feel could happen like here in the United States very quickly. Like all of a sudden, all this commercial paper that is out there that is sitting in like the money markets and all of a sudden just taking a downturn. A corporate debt crisis would be a very scary situation. Since the special purpose vehicles and the corporate debt lending facility and everybody buying into that corporate debt, it put the corporations in a very unique position. I don't know if all of them did this, but we did a report on it a while back where a lot of them got into cash and held that cash. And so now they're sitting in a large cash stockpile, so that as interest rates go into the future, as they start to go up, the idea is that these corporations were not going to be able to roll their old debt into new debt because they wouldn't be able to afford these higher interest rates. However, if they're sitting on a bunch of cash, and when it comes time to pay off those bonds, they're not rolling that into new bonds, like they don't have to take out another bond to pay for the old bond. They can use the cash holdings that they have to pay those bonds. They may be able to go into the future for a couple of years without ever having to take out any more debt, without ever having to sell bonds, because they're already sitting on all this cash from the sale of bonds that took place during the pandemic when the Federal Reserve said that they were going to be buying bonds, and it drove the markets into buying them. That gave the corporations a lot of cash. So coming into the future, we may find that the corporations may not need to borrow as much money as people think they do, and that rolling over of bonds into new bonds just won't take place as they just pay those bonds off with the cash that they have. Once the interest rates have peaked out and they start to come back down again because we're in the middle of a recession and the Federal Reserve needs to reverse course and start going back into their quantitative easing and the easy money policies again, then the corporations can go back into borrowing money again because they'll be able to get those lower rates. So anyway, that's kind of how I see that going down. You think there will ever be a Great Depression again? Yes, I do. And I think it's going to be worse than anybody had ever imagined or could anticipate. It's going to be really bad, really, really bad. Now, I can't tell you how far out that's going to be, and I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, because by that point, I feel that a lot of the "you'll own nothing and be happy" will become a lot more prevalent. Like, you can already see it in a lot of the younger generations. They don't care about getting a car. They don't care about license. They don't care about moving out or getting an apartment or any of these things. Like, that is, or starting families, like these American dream ideas that once used to run through every American, that this was like their ultimate goal to go into. It's just not the same anymore. Like, they just don't have this drive like previous generations did. So the idea that you go into a depression, well, that's like, losing everything. Like, you lose your house, you lose your farm, you lose all this stuff. But if you don't have anything to lose, what can you be depressed about? You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you have your food taken care of, like if you have all the conveniences, food, conveniences, pleasure of life, you got all these things are taken care of, and you don't have to stress them anymore. You have this false illusion of wealth. Then why pursue it? Why pursue the house? Why pursue a business? Why pursue all these things? Because you already have all the wealth you need. It's provided for you. That's where I feel a lot of the younger generation is headed. They don't want stuff. They just want the wealth. They want the food, conveniences, and pleasures of life, however they get it. And so Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, all that kind of stuff, that's going to be the prevalent thing. Like, I find that, as I can see, like at some point, the individual will not need anything other than a small cubicle to sleep in. After that, nothing else. It won't need anything. All the food, all the travel, all the other things, all that stuff will be provided. And that's going to be the real depression, because you won't be able to provide for yourself. You won't be able to grow into a position in which that you are self-sustaining or anything like that. You will always be a product of the state from that point on. And if you don't produce for the state, you may end up getting ejected out. Like, you don't get to have anything. That stuff could happen. That's the kind of depression that I see. All right. Great Depression 2032. That is when things go bye-bye. It's been calculated pretty accurately. How do they calculate that? How do they know it's going to be 2032? People living in vans down by the river. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 just right here. I don't think that was legal. A little mini bike on the Riverwalk. Let's see here. You will be dependent, not by choice. That's what I see. 2023. Oh, that's when it's going to happen, not 2032, but 2023. When the trucks stop running, then the dark times start. Well, yeah, go and take a look at the article that I have down there in the description. I'm pretty sure I put the one about the transportation dropping dramatically. FedEx, UPS, or FedEx, UPS, and one other logistics. All of these guys their stocks are dropping dramatically, and really, I kind of saw it happening with the retail first. I was just like, once the retail really started to die down, I was like, man, this is going to start sending a wave through the economy. And I put that video out a couple of months ago, and now here you see in the trucking, and they're having issues because they don't need as many of those truckers to supply what's not being sold. Thank you very much, Taylor Stanley, for the super chat. Very cool of you. I paid the bare minimum on my debt and used the money as startup capital to advance my career. Yes, that same debt is less than 1% of my current value. Previously would have taken years to pay down. Now it would take a week. Yes. Now, that is exactly what I was saying. If you're going to use that money to do something that is going to pay down that debt in the future, then that would be better than trying to pay off your debts early. You got that exactly right, Taylor. That is definitely the way you take care of your debts. You took that extra money, instead of paying off your debts, you use that extra money to advance your career, to build your income up. That's awesome. No sense of purpose. Who doesn't have a sense of purpose? Everybody has a sense of purpose, right? You got to have a purpose out there. If you don't have purpose, go find some purpose. You will own nothing, and it doesn't matter if you like it or not. Yeah, you'll own nothing, but I'm pretty sure they're going to want you to be happy with that, because if you're not happy, you'll riot. And if you're happy with it, then you'll actually beg them to do it. And that's really where I think that people are headed to. They're going to beg them to have it happen to them. Harry Dent keeps warning people. Yeah, I like Harry Dent. We talked about him earlier. When the Walmart shelves are empty, the city people will burn it down. And they just sit in front of the TV, hopeless until the Wi-Fi come back on. Yeah, since I started reading that book, Think and Grow Rich, I started looking around at the people around me, and thinking, it was just like, what are you doing with your life? For a long time, before I started doing like the hobby things, I would do my 9-to-5 job, and then I would go and like drink beer for the rest of the afternoon or something. And I never did anything to try and like advance myself. Like I would maybe do a side job or something like that on the weekends, but I never did anything to really grow as a person. And now today, I think about like some of the behaviors that I did in the past, and how like what a waste of time that I had gone through, just drinking the afternoons away or whatever. Now I feel like I have like motivation and purpose and meaning, especially when it comes to the channel, when it comes to, trying to take care of the family, to try and possibly start up some businesses and stuff like that. These are the kind of things that I think about, as opposed to like, how do I relax for the rest of the afternoon? But I look at the people around me, and for the most part, I see them standing still. Like there is so much potential within these people, but yet they don't do anything. Like they enjoy their hobby, like they might go fishing or something like that, but they're not doing anything that's really going to advance them. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be with just money either. I mean, learning a language, or doing some sort of art, or just like trying to find something out there that is beyond just doing your 9-to-5 and then just sitting around doing nothing after that. And that's what I really see like a lot of people doing. I've mentioned my buddy Dale on here, Dale Murph, who sells the Claminator clam gun. I really like this guy. Like, he is motivated. When he was 6 years old, he mowed lawns around the neighborhood until he was able to earn enough to buy a 50cc motorcycle when he was like 6 or 7 years old. This is the kind of motivation that this guy has. He owns a welding company. He sells this Claminator thing. He sells other like accessories for fishing and hunting and just different stuff. And the guy is super motivated, and he works like, at the job that I work. That's the type of thing that people really need to do, like, is to find stuff that is outside of your 9-to-5, something that is really going to carry you, something that you can find meaning and purpose with. And it doesn't necessarily have to be for money or anything. But if it is for money, then, you can see how much better your life can be by pursuing these types of things. If you just sit around and end up being a zombie, that's all you'll ever be. And, you could go to your 9-to-5 job, be very disciplined in your purchases that you do throughout your entire life, save up for retirement, and then once you retire, what are you going to do? Sit on the recliner until you die? I mean, you got to get up and get moving. That's the key to life. How high do you think they will raise interest rates on mortgage rates to ultimately meet inflation? I don't know. I think the Federal Reserve is going to raise interest rates on the Fed funds level to somewhere around 2.5% to 3%. I think that's probably where they're going to end up hitting the neutral rate. And they may even go up a little bit above that to try and get some of that ammo back. But anything above, like, say, that 2.5% to 3% federal funds is going to be very constricting to the economy. And I think that they're probably going to try and, like I said, try and shoot above that a little bit to get that ammo. But anything above that is going to slow things down too much, too dramatically. Now, that puts it, what, about 2 to 2.5% higher than it is right now. Mortgages have moved up 2%, and the Fed really hasn't even done much at all of anything. I mean, backing off on their purchases and raising interest rates a little bit. The Fed still really hasn't gone into anything as far as a tightening position goes. Once they do that, if rates go up to 6-7% on a mortgage, you're going to find that there's going to be very few people who are going to be able to make those monthly payments. That is going to be a very downer to the mortgage market. I can't see it getting that high very quickly. Now, it can over time. The Federal Reserve in their lifting of interest rates and their job owning is going to be pushing it up pretty high. But after that, it's going to start having a very disruptive mortgage market. And the Federal Reserve needs that mortgage market to be working. It doesn't need to have house prices like constantly going up. They just need that mortgage market to be functioning in order for their monetary policy to be working as well. So I think that they will probably push interest rates to that 2.5% to 3% on the Fed funds level. That may have the mortgage markets up around 6.5% to 7%, which is pretty much going to be devastating to a lot of people. And that's probably as far as it can possibly go. That's a complete guess, right? Now, I could be very wrong on that. I don't know where it is, but that's kind of like what I see. That's kind of like the limits of where it's going to end up going to. But who knows, right? Okay. Let's see here. I remember when mortgage rates were 14%. Good God. I was at 6.25. I think it was like 6.25 on the house that I tried to buy that got foreclosed on. And I remember it was like 160. Gosh, it was $168,000 for that house. God, I should have kept it. Anyway, I don't know how I could have. Anyway, $168,000 for that house. I put no money down on it. It was 6.25, and if I remember right, I think my payments were like $1,160. So now I got a house that's like almost 3 times that much, and an interest rate that's less than half of what it was, and my payments about double. Yeah, about double that. So I guess it's about twice the house too, I guess. What are your thoughts on bullshit jobs? Do they really exist? That's pretty interesting that you bring that up. A buddy of mine brought me a book called Bullshit Jobs, and yeah, I think they really exist. And if you're not quite sure of what that means, there was a good example. It was in that book. He was telling me about it. I haven't read the book yet, but he was telling me about it and how, like, this university, I guess it was like, it was 20, 30 years after this university was built, and they had like one maintenance guy who would go around and take care of all the problems that was going on with this university. But like, it's 20, 30-year-old building, so there's like way more problems with this thing than one guy could ever possibly handle, but they only had this one guy dealing with it. And so, like, the staff and the students and everybody was dealing with all these like problems and broken desks and stuff like that were all over this facility because this guy just simply didn't have enough time in a day to get it all taken care of. So instead of figuring out a way to deal with all the problems that were on this facility as far as dealing with all the maintenance issues that were going on, they hired somebody to go around and apologize for all the problems that were taking place at the university from all the maintenance issues. It's like, he didn't really do anything. He was just there to apologize, right? So, bullshit job. All right, you'll find a lot in corporate managers hiring people to manage to make their job seem useful. Yeah, I've heard of that one too. Like, somebody who's in charge of, like, a project manager, they'll hire a whole bunch of people to do management positions, and they'll say, "Look at all these managers I've hired. See, they're all busy. See how awesome I am at hiring all these people and making them busy, even though they're not really doing anything, just for the show of hiring people." I've heard of that. When are you coming to Florida? Oh, okay. Um, I was invited, not by George Gammon, but my parents invited me to go to the Rebel Capitalists in Florida. They said that they want to go down there and they wanted me to go with them. Uh, I'm considering it. I think that's in June, isn't it? So that's like right around the corner here. And so I got to make a decision on that one. I should have already made a decision on it, but I haven't decided on whether or not I'm going to go down there to Florida and do that. But it seems like such a fun trip, and I would really like to do that. So I don't know. I'm thinking about it. So hopefully in June I can make a trip down there. Hey, thank you very much, John, for the $2 super chat. Thoughts on Saudi maybe accepting yuan for oil? Yeah, I can imagine it. I can imagine that they'll probably accept quite a bit of oil, or accept yuan for their oil. The only thing that would had me like a little bit like hesitant on thinking that they're going to go fully into it is that what are they going to do with the yuan after they have it? It's not like the yuan is a world reserve currency that they can go and just spend that yuan wherever they want in the world for the things that they need. They could pretty much spend it in China with China's corporations and the imports that they need from China. So, yeah, I could see them selling a lot of oil in yuan, but really they're probably going to sell just enough to cover what it is that they plan on buying from China anyway. Anything more than that, what are they going to do with it? Like, China's not a world reserve currency. They really don't have any other place to spend that money. So, yeah, that's probably where it's probably going to limit out at. It could go into more purchases than that, and I guess Saudi could figure out a way to, like, say, exchange that for the other things that they need in the world. But I just still see the dollar being the dominant currency. Really just because China is not going to be able to provide the world with a big enough bond market. Like, they're not going to go into that much debt. And they also have no real way of getting the yuan out there to the world to be used as a world reserve currency unless they plan on going into some severe deficit spending, right? Like importing more than they export. That's how the United States does it. Like, we have this gigantic bond market and we import more than we export. That pushes our dollars out to the world. It's like Triffin's dilemma. How do you supply the world with enough currency? Right? There's really the easiest way to do it is to just go into massive deficit spending. And China, I just don't feel is going to do that. Not at this time, anyway. I mean, they could. Yeah. The BRICS would use yuan, yeah. No, I mean, I'm not trying to say that it isn't going to happen. What I'm trying to say is not happening right now, right? Like, if you think like next year that the world reserve currency is going to be something other than the United States dollar, I would question that. I would very seriously question that, because I don't think there's anything that's even remotely close to coming close to competing with the dollar. Not even. Like, the next nearest thing is going to be the euro, right? And then that makes up like what, 15% of the entire world trade. You know how big it would have to get in order for it to take over. So is it going to go away? Yeah, at some point the dollar will cease to exist as the world reserve currency, but it's not yet. Do you think it is possible that the governments around the world could secretly come together and manufacture a world war to depopulate the size, further control of rights? Manufacture a world war. I think all of them were manufactured, weren't they? What's the intended purpose of it? Is it to depopulate the people, or is it to take power? Because really, the easiest way to depopulate the people is to starve them. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to expend any money to starve the people. So if it was they're trying to get rid of the people, that's the way I think that they would go about it, is to starve them out. And when you think about food shortages coming, then maybe that could kind of lead into it. But I don't think they're going to manufacture a war to try and kill off the population. That would be too, it would be too difficult. And then you would meet too much resistance, and then you would end up with you would end up with like a history of you end up with this, like, the idea of concentration camps. That's a very like unlikely scenario to happen, because once the people recognize the concentration camps are coming, they're going to remember from the Nazi German days, and they're going to be like fighting that and saying, no, you can't do this kind of thing, because we remember. That sort of thing is going to prevent like another type of scenario similar to that. If they're going to do like a mass genocide, then they have to come up, like when they come up with that, it's going to have to come from a different angle, a different style. A lot of people thought it was like this COVID thing, this manufactured sickness that was going to wipe out the entire world. I wasn't scared. I didn't believe that for a second. And so as other people were occupying their minds with this mass genocide coming from the COVID thing, I wasn't worried about it. I look out there and I see the people that I know personally who had passed away from COVID, and I really do question their health to begin with. Like, had they got even the common cold, I wonder if they would have passed away anyway, because they were already kind of sickly people. When it first hit, everybody thought that there was going to be people dying in the streets. Like, all your neighbors were going to die, all the kids were going to die, no old people left. Everybody in there was going to, nobody, like, yeah, there was a lot of deaths, right? But out of all the people that I know out there, like a handful of them died, and those people were compromised. And so, I don't think it was a manufactured attempt to kill off the population. Although a lot of people do believe that. All right, food war of attrition, break people and society psychologically. Yeah. Yep, most were living bad. That's true, just like in 2008. Any updates on your house? Did you fix the roof issue? Nope. The roof issue, it's not really like an issue. It was just improperly installed. And so if I let it continue for, forever, then it would eventually have, cause rotting issues in the soffit and stuff. So it's not like it's an issue that is pressing, that needs to be taking place like right now. So I'm going to try and do that roof at the end of summer. And hopefully I'll have enough money by that time that I don't have to take out any money, like a loan or anything, to get the materials. But nope, I haven't worked on the roof yet. The only thing I really have done is like the little maintenance stuff inside the house and cut a garden in. That's really, and then mow the lawn. I got a huge lawn. God, it just takes forever to mow my lawn. But, gives me something to do. I didn't have any lawn before, so I guess I shouldn't complain. Hey, all-nighter, right on, man. It's nice to see you here. Was having lunch with my dad. That was only slightly more important than hanging out with you guys. Well, yes, it is. I'm glad you got to spend time with your dad. And I'm glad you came and hung out with us for a little bit. Housing prices to drop in the next year or two? Yes or no? I don't know, man. I mean, the way I see it going right now, I don't see house prices coming down dramatically. Not until, like, I'm looking to see when inventory levels start to rise, and mainly coming from the new construction. When building materials, the lead times and the prices stop extending out, like getting worse, which has happened, but then actually start going the other way, that's going to be the sign that I feel that there's going to be a turn in the housing market, because that should bring in more inventory. But there's a lot of questions that are going to be coming up for that. I mean, we don't know what the interest rates are going to be by that time. We don't know the conditions of a lot of stuff. And so that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for rising inventory levels. If I can see that dramatically moving, building materials coming into more supply, completion of homes happening faster, then I would definitely see a downturn in the housing market. And then even at that point, I wouldn't see it happening extensively unless there was like really high interest rates and a severe downturn in like jobs or something like that. Then we could see a major turn in the housing prices. Rents is going to be the other thing to watch. What it is that people can get for rent. So if you can buy an expensive house and yet still rent it out for a profit, that's going to keep home prices elevated as well. And then also watch the institutional buyers, because they're not taking out loans. They're just paying cash for it. So it doesn't matter where the interest rates go if there's more institutional buyers that are out there than there is like regular buyers. Well, I wouldn't say that there's more of them, just a significant amount of them. All right, continuing on here. How long have we been out here? 2 hours. You guys are amazing. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, I somewhat agree, but can see a drop of 20% before the next election. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine that home prices can continue up at the rate that they've been going. I mean, like I said, I mean, the Zillow estimate on my house goes up more than I can earn in a day. I mean, that's like, I don't even know how to I have a hard time even fathoming that. It's just like, I can't, it doesn't make any sense at all. Let's see here. Hail and fire, actually, bacteria exist in viruses that don't, at least on land. They are exosomes. My dog died of bacterial infection by Clostridium Dent. I don't even know what this is. Tendinitis. Oh, okay. Yoda says always to there is a servant and a master. Yeah, I can agree with that one. Just look up, China is exporting 23 billion to Saudi, and Saudi exports something like 40 billion to China. Hence, the petrodollar loses that amount at least. Yeah, but on a grand scale of things, that still doesn't seem like it's that much money. I mean, it's a lot, but I just I don't know. I still don't see where the Saudis are going to take on so much yuan that it would disrupt the dollar to that point, as a world reserve currency. Saudi Arabia is going to end up with all these yuan, and if they don't need anything from China, what are they going to do with it? Who else is going to accept it? I mean, I guess if the yuan became more of a world reserve currency, then other nations would accept it for their goods and services, but that's not really the case. I mean, give it time, it might, but I just don't see where the yuan is going to be serving as that world reserve currency. Not at this time. Nobody buying in Ukraine. Crushed. Ukraine itself is getting crushed, yeah? Hey, thank you very much, Milos, for the $20 super chat. Very cool of you, man. Thank you. You and David Wise would be a great collaboration. Yeah? I would love to hear it. Or love to meet him, anyway. Not your problem. Thank you very much. Gardening while listening. Top notch. Sunny. Hey, right on. That's what I'm going to do this afternoon. I'm going to go play around in the yard or something. I cut my garden in, got all the sod pulled out, turned the dirt, amended the soil with some chicken and steer manure that I had, or that I got from the store here. And yeah, I think we're good to go. I think we're ready to start planting. The only thing that would I'm a little hesitant on is that it's March right now, and I've seen it snow in April. And I would just hate to get this big old garden going and have everything all set and then have a major frost come in there and kill off everything. So that's the only thing that's really holding me back from like trying to just load the garden up right now, is that I would really like to wait towards the end of April before I start doing anything. But, you know, we can get started. We can do stuff. Let's see here. People are going to cancel Netflix, sell Peloton, and not book vacation before the forego home due to higher rates. Okay. David Wise, the flat earther. Oh, is he a flat earther? I've met a few of those guys. Let's see here. All-nighter, USA and corporations, and we are the employees. Got to determine yourself under common law, not statutory slave law. Exactly right. That's going back to that sovereign person we were talking about earlier. There's two of each country everywhere in the world. There's the government of that country and the people of that country. Yep, that's exactly right. We're still talking about the sovereign citizen stuff there. Put potatoes in now. Okay, yeah. In fact, I think we got some seed potatoes at the house, so I will do that. I like the buzz. Okay. 1 out of every $16 that exist in paper form are in Argentina. I agree with you about the dollar being the world-saving instrument, cash-wise, for a long time. Yeah, and that's really, dollars are incredibly valuable everywhere outside of the United States. You go to any nation outside of the United States and they will gladly take every Federal Reserve note that you offer them. They will not turn it down. It is, in many countries, it is more popular in a better currency than their own sovereign nation's currency. They would prefer to have the dollar. This happens, I remember when I was in Jamaica, I was like 13 years old then. And I think the exchange rate was 9-1, but then you can go to the beach, and go to these guys on the beach and do the black market trade for like 13, 14-1. It was a much better rate because they would much rather have the cash, the US dollars, than any other currency. I learned that when I was a young kid. I'm waiting for a fly to land on the camera. Yeah. I don't know if a fly is going to zip right over that bank. How much longer you guys want to hang out here? I've been out here like 2 hours now. Let's see here. The bonds in the S&P have a massive divergence, and at some point they will have to meet, whether it's bond calls or SPY puts. Wasn't it kind of interesting how we actually watched the stock market and the bond market rise together for a couple of years, and all of a sudden now they're acting, in the same fashion? They never change the sea. All night, man. Right on. Russia and China not so secretly stockpiling gold. Maybe we are on to something. Yeah. I would imagine that most nations probably are getting very nervous about like the way the United States handled these sanctionings and stuff. And without gold, there's really nothing else out there that you can use to protect your wealth. Nothing quite like gold is. Gold and silver. I mean, when I talk about gold, I talk about silver, and silver in the same sense. Silver's a little differently. It's kind of like gold's evil little cousin that performs much worse and better. So like when silver takes off, it takes off like a vengeance, but when it underperforms, it severely underperforms. But these are the only things that you could really use to protect yourself against like that third party. And I think foreign nations found that out just the same way, especially when it comes to these sanctions. So it wouldn't surprise me to see like more purchases by the citizens of these foreign nations, like not just of sovereign nations, and being encouraged by the governments themselves to tell their people, hey, it's a good idea to get into this gold and silver and stuff. Once they have purchased it, it's in their nation, right? And now it can be used. It can be, you can use it for savings accounts. You can The banks can say, hey, you can deposit gold with us and you can keep it in your account. You can have a gold account or, a regular sovereign account. But it takes the people themselves to actually jump into that idea and becoming more of a precious metal holder, or wanting to be a precious metal holder. And if you can get the governments to do it first, like you can get the government to say, hey, we're stockpiling gold, well, then that can trigger the people to do it too. Anyway, just kind of one of my ideas out there. I don't know if that's what's going to happen or not, but sad but true, third world countries almost worship the dollar. You could see it in their eyes when you pull dollar bills in front of them. Yeah, I learned that a long time ago when I was, when I traveled to Mexico and to Jamaica and stuff, and I would see how much demand there was for US dollars. Like, I just didn't understand it. I'm like, well, it's an exchange rate, right? What's the difference between their currency and our currency? But then I realized it's how much stronger, the dollar is. The only God can end the Fed at this point. They own our politicians. Yeah. I don't think so. I think the Federal Reserve at some point will have run its course, and they will go out of business. They will go bankrupt. But at that point, like, it's going to be pretty obvious to everybody that there is a new currency coming into use, and that will just, like, that in itself will just get people to quit wanting or holding on to dollars. In fact, they'll try to get rid of those dollars as soon as they can in favor of the better currency that's out there. Once that starts to take place, it'll happen very quickly. But at this point, there's really no alternative. So until that happens. All right. Gammon's weather talk is banned. He's losing it now. What's going on there? I'm missing that. What's going on with Gammon? Let's see here. Yep, wheat may be as good as gold in the near future. Yeah, it's, when it comes to being hungry, like, that's something that one of our viewers had sent me an email, and he had talked about in this email, he had talking a little bit about a story about being in Cuba, and how his family had saved a bunch of gold for, in case of, like, emergencies or downtime, or, bad times, downturn in the economy. Well, when it happened and they got hungry, they gave up that gold right away. Like, they gave up the gold almost immediately because they were hungry. Why? Because, I almost said ultimately again. Why? Because you can't eat gold. And they didn't, I don't know if they really had a plan to deal with this gold. They just thought, well, we have the gold, and if we ever get hungry, we can give up the gold. Well, they gave it up right away, and then once the gold was gone and the food was gone, now they're back to being poor again with nothing. So, anyway, gold backs. Yeah, I like those gold backs. Have you guys seen those? They're like, they almost look like a dollar bill made out of tinfoil, but they're actually made out of gold. It's really like, there's a certain weight calculated into these things, and you can trade them just like it's gold. And they call them gold backs, and they look like it has like a dollar denomination on it. So it's pretty cool. Like, if you want to spend gold, you can just hand one of these, like, gold backs dollars and actually be spending gold. I think it's a great concept. And then in places like Nevada, where, like, gold and silver is legal tender, this could actually be a form of currency if the people were to accept it. I'm gonna have to get going, guys. I'm getting tired here. My tongue is, like, I'm starting to slur my words and stuff. Do you exercise? Yes. I don't exercise, like, hardcore. Like, I don't go to a gym and work out for an hour, but working the lumberyard does pretty good as far as just, like, constantly lifting and moving and, just being active. But as far as working out goes, the only thing I really do to work out is, recently I started doing push-ups. And it's kind of funny. Like I was thinking, oh, I wonder how many push-ups I can do. And I hadn't done push-ups in a long time. And I did like 20, 25 push-ups, and it was so hard to get to like that last one. It was just like everything I could do to like lock my elbows. And I don't know, so I just did that every day. I would do 25 push-ups every day, and I've worked all the way up to this morning. I did 42 push-ups. So I want to get to like 50. I think 50 would be like awesome if I could just knock out 50 push-ups. But as far as working out, that's the only thing I really do, is that I do push-ups in the morning. Smoking that West Coast weed. Good for you. There's plenty of it out here. Planks are your friends? I don't know what that is. I want to buy a used truck. People are looking to sell because of gas prices. Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. You know, there's going to be a lot of vehicles out there, these gas hogs that people are, you know, it's going to come summertime and they're going to want to travel around, and they got these big old pickup trucks that just suck the gas like you wouldn't believe, and they're not going to be able to travel very far without spending a lot of money on it. And something that I found is that, like, during the winter, people want to drive pickup trucks. During the summer, they want to drive cars. And so try to buy a pickup truck during the summer when nobody wants them, and try to buy a car during the winter when nobody wants them. That's like, but right now, vehicles are so short in supply that everybody wants them. So I don't know if that little strategy will work anymore. All right. Let's see here. I'd be surprised if I can do 10. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the first day I got down there, the 10 were pretty hard, but yeah. How old am I? I am 45 years old. Hey, thank you very much, Soma. More thoughts on gold and scale, i.e. fine for individuals, hard to trade on a national scale. For physical gold and silver, got to deliver it, right? How much does it cost to send 10 tons of gold? Ooh, a lot. I would imagine the security of 10 tons of gold would be very expensive. I guess I just don't look at that kind of transportation or storage on that kind of scale. I think of me as more of an individual in what I would do with my physical. From a national point of view, from a nation, yeah, it can be very difficult to try and store and secure and keep that gold physically. I could see where that could be like, you know, a problem. It doesn't have like, unless gold goes up in price, then it costs you to have it, right? It costs you to store it, costs you to secure it, it costs you to have it. So unless it continues to go up in price, then holding on to physical gold, especially on that kind of quantity, can actually be damaging. Oh, no, there isn't. Decline that. Did you guys hear that? Incoming call. All right. Let's see here. 4,000 from California to Texas plus security. That's how much it costs to ship 10 tons of gold from California to Texas? How did you know that? Let's see here. Hi, UE. What would you do with 100K after selling a house? What would I do with 100K? Well, I guess it would depend on what you have going on in your life. Like, I have a family and stuff, so I would need a place to live. So if I sold my house, then I would have to find another place to go to, which basically would mean need another house, right? But if I had just like somebody just handed me 100K, just here, what are you gonna do with this? I would probably split it up. I would put like, probably do it in thirds. Do like maybe even quarters, a third of quarters, to do like, you know, a third precious, a third crypto, a third stock, something like that. Or maybe even quarters and hold a quarter of it in cash instead of investing it. But that's probably what I would do at this point. But that's me. Like, I think probably somebody who's a little bit smarter with it would find a better place to invest it. and try and get a decent return. And you would have to have some pretty good confidence in what it is that you're putting that towards, especially in this kind of environment when you think about, like, there could be a major recession coming in the next year and a half. I don't know. Like, that's a good question, but that's what I would do with it. Anyway. All right, guys. I'm going to give it another 6 minutes here, and then I'm going to have to take off because I don't think I can sit out here for all day. I probably could, but I don't know if I should. Let's see here. I charge $3,000 for gold transport with no liabilities. Lots of laughs. All right. Laugh out loud. Let's see here. V8s. Let's see. Unless you're hauling or towing, putting it to use, it's a waste. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. I mean, there's really no point to have these big, I mean, other than they're kind of fun to drive around. I mean, I just don't really see like any point in having a big pickup truck that has these huge motors in it, unless, like you're saying, unless you plan on working it, hauling stuff or whatever. All right. Have you heard of wholesaling real estate? I haven't. What does that mean? Where's the blue dice? They're in the Toyota. I need to glue that damn windshield. Maybe I'll go get some glue and do that this afternoon. Glue the rear view mirror back up. Buy a woman with 100K. I don't know about that. Stock tips via war in Ukraine, wheat and weapons. Yeah, I'm not very good at giving stock advice or investing advice or anything like that. I just tell you guys what I do. If there was anything that I would try and, like, I don't know, like if you don't have anything going on right now, I would invest in like learning to preserve food. That's what I would do. But if you're looking for something more like lifelong kind of stuff, I don't know. Like I said, I go into cryptos and gold and silver and cash and do a little bit of stock trading, or not trading, just stock buying. I made a pull-up bar from brass pipe. Yeah. Doing pull-ups would be probably a good idea. My shoulders hurt though, so I don't like really doing pull-ups. Let's see here. Any other good questions going on? I will drive my 95 Mazda truck till it dies. Yeah, I agree, man. That's probably what I do with my vehicles as well. I mean, I just keep an eye out for the cheap vehicles, I mean, if there's $1,000 car out there that runs really good, and yeah, I'm gonna buy it, and I'll just hold on to it until one of my other vehicles breaks. If you could find a house in Story where if you could find a house, probably in Astoria where we're looking at. If you couldn't find, I'm not sure what that means. Sorry, guys. Do you think you can make a living off day trading? No. I couldn't. I mean, I suck at trading, so I couldn't. And I've tried doing day trading in the past. Like, there's a couple of, times where I thought, man, I got it, I nailed it or whatever. But for the most part, I just end up losing money. Like, I'm a terrible market timer. Terrible. All right. 2 to 3 weeks ago, the 2-year yield crossed over the 5-year. What do you think the future implications will be? Well, I was watching the 5-year, 30-year. That was the one that I was keeping an eye on, simply because that was the one that Alan Greenspan had talked about when they asked him about the 2-year, 10-year crossover. And he said he thinks that's a very good predictor. It's a very good indicator. But what he likes to watch is the 5-year, 30-year, and that the widening spread on the 5-year, 30-year, what did he say? That reflects corporate management's willingness to invest. And so I was keeping an eye on this 5-year, 30-year, and it was the first one to cross over. It was the first one to invert, or at least the major one. I mean, we had the 20-year paying more than the 30-year, and there was some other, like, smaller inversions taking place, but that 5-year, 30-year, that was a major inversion that had happened, and it happened before the 2-year, 10-year did. So I'm keeping an eye on that one, and I think that's probably going to be like when you see that spread start to widen again, because it was negative for a while where it had crossed over. I think this morning the 5-year or the 30-year, the yield on it rose above the 5-year for a little bit. I don't know if that's still the case right now. But when we start seeing that trend of that gap widening, where we're starting to see the 30-year yield being much higher than the 5-year, we see that widening out. I'm going to keep an eye on that. Supposedly, that is Alan Greenspan's indicator of corporate management's willingness to invest. I think that's probably the time that I'm going to try and jump in more into the market, is when I see that spread start to widen significantly, like really start to move into that trend. I don't know if that's the right move or not, but that's what I'm going to try and do. All right, guys, I'm going to do one more question here, and then I'm going to take off for the afternoon. We have been out here for 2.5 hours. Holy moly. And you guys are so awesome. I mean, for sticking it out here with me. 268 of you guys out here. We had it all the way up to close to 500 at one point. That's amazing. All right, one more question. Anybody else got one more for me? Let's see here. Come on. I get 1 ton, 6.5 diesel. Oh, you're talking about your pickup. I get it. Jumping in at the spread sounds like a great plan. Yeah, I hope so, all-nighter. Like I said, I don't know if that's the right move or not. But, I mean, I was calling that 5-year, 30-year, first. I mean, I don't know anybody out there who was talking about keeping an eye on the 5-year, 30-year. And man, when it crossed over, you see all the news articles come out about it. Now, I don't know why it was that was the one that crossed over first. It was the one that I was keeping my eye on, but that's what happened. So I'm going to watch for it. When that spread starts to widen, I'm going to jump in. You see, thank you very much, John, for the super sticker here, or for the super chat. You see 10% mortgage rates by next year. Ooh, no, I don't think we're going to get to 10%. I'm thinking like 6.5, 7. That if I was to just kind of throw a guess out there, I'm thinking 6.5, 7 is going to be where we're at. You skipped mine. What did I skip? Did I skip your super chat? Where is it? Is it back up here? I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, bro. Just ask me the question again here and I'll... All right. Let's see. How heavy is that gold chain and the purity? It looks really cool. You're talking this? It's silver. It's 2 ounces sterling, and I paid $36 for it. Basically gave the guy weight value. Why useful jobs are underpaid and stupid jobs overpaid? I don't know. Any advice for millennial who is lazy to stop being lazy? Read Think and Grow Rich. Read Think and Grow Rich. And if you don't want to read that big old book, listen to Earl Nightingale's The Greatest Secret. 7.5% mortgage rates would be great. Yeah, I don't know. When will gold take off? Okay. Gold will take off when the average person decides that they want to get an ounce. That's when it's really going to take off. I could tell you, I know a lot of people who do investments, who try and save money, who do all kinds of stuff with trying to invest. Hardly anybody I know buys silver. Hardly anybody I know. Now, I've said this before. There's I forget, how much of the world production, 800, 900 million ounces or something like that? If every single American, right, every single American decided that they were going to get 2 ounces of silver, or 3 ounces of silver, let's say 3 ounces of silver, less than $100 worth of silver, every single American was going to go out there and get 3 ounces. It would completely wipe out the entire world's supply. Just the United States We're not talking Canada, Mexico, Europe, China, India, Russia, all the places out there who might have people who would be concerned about their currencies, looking to find a safe haven to go to. If everybody decided that they were going to start moving into gold and silver, there simply would not be even close to enough. So if we start running into sovereign debt crisis, you're going to see gold really, really perform well. Okay, I'm going to go. Uneducated Economist. Thanks so much for hanging out. And you guys let me know.